Oh, I have. Hi. Hi, Ray.
Hi.
Okay, so while people find their way in, how are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. I could have got more sleep last night, but it's going well.
Okay, so now the video is going to start recording. I'm Tanya Janka, and this is my friend Ray Leblanc, and this is chapter 2 of Alice and Bob Learn Secure Coding. So when I wrote my first book, thank you, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, I did streams like this to do free lectures, and I had a really great time hanging out with friends, talking about each chapter, answering questions for anyone that wanted to show up. And so for this book, I decided I would do the same thing. Another reason I decided to do these is because I don't have a PhD. I don't even have a university degree. I just have a college diploma from my local college. And so when I talked to universities about them teaching this or me teaching this, they offered me so little money that I realized that I could actually work as a Walmart greeter and get paid better. It was less than minimum wage, Ray. Yeah, I know. And so what I decided to do is that I would just teach it for free on my own terms. And so that is what you are attending today. So thank you for coming. So Ray, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm Ray Leblanc. I've been in AppSec since like 2011, and before that, I was a developer. Um, so yeah, I currently work in healthcare. But I've you can look me up on LinkedIn. Like I've worked at Zynga, Zappos. Apparently, I like companies that start with the letter Z. Uh, but I've worked at Cambia Health Solutions, which is also in the healthcare space in the past. So, but all of it is in AppSec and ProdSec, and that's what I love doing.
Excellent. And so for those of you that don't know me, I'm Tanya Janka. Sometimes I call myself She Hacks Purple. I'm from Canada. That's the accent you're going to hear. Je parle français aussi, so I speak French also. And I write books about software security, or that's what I've been doing. I also give secure coding training, do AppSec consulting, and I have a whole bunch of things up my sleeve that I'm planning to start doing in the next year or so, but we'll do those as we continue. I keep seeing people connect and disconnect and connect and disconnect, and I'm not sure what's going on today. Today's Mother's Day. Maybe, a lot of people are realizing they're supposed to be somewhere with their mom. I took my mom out last weekend. But for everyone that did make it on, thank you. So Ray, usually what we do is we kind of just go through parts of the chapter that my guest feels interested in talking about. What part are you thinking that you might want to talk about today? Or if you want me to take the lead, that's allowed too.
Let's just start going down the sections and let's see how we feel. If we have light sections, then we'll just move on to the next.
I like it. So the first section. So for those of you that don't know, the book is about secure coding. And section 2 I called beginning, which is the beginning of the agnostic advice. So this applies to every single language. And my first piece of advice, Ray, is we should follow a secure system development lifecycle. What the heck am I talking about there?
I'm assuming you're talking about like an SSDLC, like Microsoft has one that you can reference. But basically, it's how would I put this? You have the software development lifecycle or a system development lifecycle, and then you have the security steps that go with each of those phases. I would say.
Yeah.
I don't think they're all pretty standardized now. I think they kind of all look the same, don't they? I don't know. I've used the Microsoft one for such a long time. That's kind of the one I've stuck with.
Okay, I'm going to disagree. I do not. To me, okay, so I totally agree with your definition. So however we're building software, whatever system development lifecycle or methodology we're following, Agile, Waterfall, DevOps, or some mishmash of one of those, of two or three of those, which is usually what actually happens. And then adding some sort of security activity, at least one, to each phase that we're doing. That's the way I see it. But that's not what I'm seeing in industry. Like I'm seeing a lot of places where, so when I go in and give training, Ray, it's all over the place. Like some of them have tons of security steps. Some of them have almost none. Some of them will tell me, oh, we don't have a secure system development lifecycle. But then they're like, oh, but we also, we threat model, then we do design reviews, then we do this, then we do that. And I was like, oh, it sounds like you do have one. You just don't have a name for it. But yeah, it sounds like you're doing it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what you would do in like an SDLC, right? Like you do threat modeling, you do reviews, code reviews, design reviews, things like that. So like, yeah, you're right. They probably just don't call it that secure system design or development lifecycle. They probably just, these are the actions that we do.
So how would someone, so let's say someone's a software developer and they work somewhere and they do, let's say they're doing Agile and they're trying to move to DevOps. So they're doing, Scrum meetings in the morning, but they're like starting to use a CI sometimes, and they're trying to move towards DevOps. They're not really sure. And right now they run SAST sometimes, and they're allowed to ask the security team questions. And sometimes there's a pen test. What could they do maybe to like try to have a bit more of a secure SDLC? You're like, literally anything.
If you're able to run SAST sometimes, you're probably able to run SAST a lot more. So I'd probably start there. Maybe, but I think that's a good start. And depending, I mean, like it's better than nothing, what you just described.
Yeah.
But like what I'm hearing is like what I would look at is how mature is their development life cycle just on its own, right? Because like from what you just explained, I would guess it's probably just as immature or maybe a little bit more mature than what they currently have going on the security side.
Yeah.
Especially like usually like, oh, they're just starting to use like continuous integration stuff, right? Like I think that's just a maturity problem in their development org, that security wasn't able to bolt on those little extra phases possibly. But I think I don't know if you have to do it more. I mean, like more is better, like scan more often is better for visibility. But like if you're scanning like once a month, and you're like, I probably wouldn't recommend that, but like it's better than not scanning at all. Right. So
For sure.
I think what you're wanting to do is to like slowly mature over time. I think adding too many security activities at once may like kind of cause an undue burden on your developers.
Oh, for sure.
So like rolling it out piecemeal and then like getting feedback from your developers, right? And really like customize your like SSDLC to like how you work. Like you don't want to use anything out of the box, because no one's taking these steps and just like this is how we do development also. Like no one's doing that, like everyone has their own preferences, teams, and like the technologies you use sometimes dictate how you have to do stuff.
Oh, I agree with that too. I want to let the audience know that you can put a question in the chat, and assuming it has anything to do with the book, we will answer it. Or even if it's just about application security in general or industry, etc. Last time we ended up getting onto quite the conversation about careers. and getting promoted and stuff like that. I would add, Ray, so if you have a mess of a system development lifecycle where everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and everyone's kind of all over the place and following different processes everyone should take what each of us say with a small grain of salt, because both of us have confirmation bias and both of us like have certain experiences. So that's what has worked for us. It doesn't mean it will necessarily work for you, but I would try to add security requirements to every new project. So if you have my book, just go to chapter 5, and I've actually written out all the requirements for different technologies. So serverless, WebSockets, APIs, etc., so that you can just take the parts you like and then just apply that to every new project if you can. So, you're making an API. It's like, well, if it's public facing, I want it to be behind an API gateway. I have a bunch of things that I would like to see. And so if you give developers guidance from the beginning, I think you'll get way, way, way better results. And then the other thing, and this is where the grain of salt comes in, is if they've never had any secure coding or security or secure AI training at all, you have a whole bunch of developers that feel really uncertain what they're supposed to be doing, what they should be doing, or what they could be doing. So whether it be you buy some sort of online, like computer-based training course, or you send them to a conference, or like the pre-conference training, or you hire a nerd like me, and there's a lot of options.
I mean, or you can buy them a book.
Buy them my book. Yeah. Right. And then send them to these free streams, right? Like that is a really cheap option. And a bunch of you could share the same copy of the book if you really want. So do something like that so they know what you actually want from them, because they are not learning that in university, college, and boot camps. And so then from there, try to just be available to answer questions, which obviously is really hard because security people are usually quite overworked. But if you can make it clear that you're available and you want to help, like that goes a long way, I find.
Yeah. And some other tips, if at my current job, our developers have office hours, so I'm starting to go to those. So I'm just available during their office hours, and that way also when I'm able to hear that the discussions that are happening. So if I need to weigh in from a security perspective, I'm I can kind of see what different teams are working on or having trouble with working on, right? Because usually the office hours, they're talking about issues that they're having.
I love that.
Lunch and Learns are great. OWASP has a lot of great resources that you can easily convert into Lunch and Learns. When I was at Cambia, my first year there, I basically every month, for not January to December, but February to November, basically gave a Lunch and Learn on the OWASP, one of the OWASP top 10s, and it was just like a 20-minute thing, and I had left 10 minutes for questions, and
it's a great share knowledge. That's awesome.
Well, also, if you're using AI, build out those skills, for your developers to use. That's one of the things I'm currently working on at my current job, and it's interesting, it's fun. And it could be always there for developers, even if you're offline. So that's nice.
Okay, I have a new topic. So the next one is use a modern framework and all available security features within it. What do you think?
I like the use a modern framework. I would say I would say use all available security features that make sense for your org.
Okay.
Because a lot of people will use in the Java world, let's just talk about Java, frameworks, for example,
Spring Boot,
Struts, Spring Boot, or Struts 2, things like that, right? Sometimes people don't use the auth and the session management in those because they don't like how it does the auth-end, for example, and they want to use Cognito instead or something like that, right? So you have to make sense of how you want your flows to work and kind of use the security features that will help those controls and not force you into something you don't want to, a pattern you don't want.
Okay. For those of you listening, you can ask questions by posting a comment. So sorry that there's a lack of clarity there. There's not like a box that says ask questions. You just put a comment on the video and then we'll see it and then we're able to answer it. And we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch. But there tends to be the least number of people on Twitch because I never use Twitch. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just am more active on other platforms, and that's okay. Ray, the next one's input validation. Do you think we should do some of that?
Yeah, I think so.
You're like, nah, don't bother checking.
So now I'm going to say, now let's get into coding advice.
Yeah.
Well, that was the first sentence of that section. So, I absolutely, yes, like input validation is definitely a useful control. I mean, you have the two different or you have the client side validation, which you want to primarily use for improving user experience. Like really, like you want to allow them to. That client side is just to give your users feedback. You're not like, don't rely on that for security, right?
Agreed.
Everything needs to be on server side, and there should be like anything on the client side should also be parodied on the server side. Like the server side doesn't always have to be parodied on the client side, but like for usability, like that's good. But
so when we say input validation, what I think, so like, I'd love to know if your definition's different, and it's okay if it is. So to me, input validation is every time data gets sent to our system, we should check that it's what we're expecting before we do anything with it. And if it's not what we're expecting, we just say, no, thanks, try again. These are our requirements, but no, thank you. Like you've made a boo-boo. I don't want that. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, like you're checking to make sure, like, if you're expecting a number that you're getting like an integer, right? Like if you're expecting some data forms are much harder to
like a date.
Well, I mean, ideally your front end would send the correct format. So, but yeah, you should still check your date formats to make sure that it's what you're expecting. But like, it's harder to validate like comments, for example, right? Like, it's harder to validate. I've seen some weird last names, right? Like there's weird addresses that aren't necessarily standard, especially if you're moving outside of like U.S. North America, like how other countries have things structured may be different from ours.
There's this meme I really like of Excel and incels, and there's a small overlap, and it's like thinking everything's a date.
Yes, yeah.
But we want to make sure, like, so in the book I use a date of birth, right? So a date of birth, it not only needs to be a date, and it needs to be, the right format, whether it be like month, day, year, or day, month, year, or whatever the format is that you want. But then also it should probably be in the past, right? You can't really have a date of birth that's in the future.
Yeah.
It probably shouldn't be more than 150 years ago.
Yeah. So that's a good like kind of like segue into like the different input validation strategies. And like, so you have like syntactic validation, which is like, is the syntax, is the structure field like dates, like is the currency symbols used correct? Is your social security number in the US, like, is that like 3-2-4 characters, right? And then you also have like semantic validation, which is kind of like what you just talked about. Is the start date before the end date? Is the price within the expected range, right? Like our values within ranges. Like So that's kind of the two ways to think of like the different strategies of input validation.
There's a question in the chat that I want to put after. But for now, I just wanted to add a comment that someone had. It irritates me to have to put in to state my address for countries that have no states or where the postal code system doesn't use state as part of the address. Oh yeah, I'm so with you on that one. I would say like, so I see some problems with input validation, Ray, when I look, like when I review code, and often it's that the developer doesn't think that it's input, so they're not validating it. So they're like, oh, I got from the database. I'm like, yeah, but that database is full of user input. And it was put there by, you know, some other API that you didn't write. How do you know they did good validation? Or you're getting it from another like a third-party API, like you're getting it from like, I don't know, Google Maps or something, right? And then you're not validating what you're getting. And I'm like, what if Google's having a really bad day, right?
I've never seen validation on those use cases either. At least often. I probably have ran across it, but like not enough where it sticks into my memory. So like I would agree. Like I also generally haven't in the past recommended like input validation from like databases. I don't think that's terrible advice, but like it is something you should probably consider. Like is what I would say, depending on your threat model.
Yeah, yeah. How serious it is, the threat actors that you might be facing. When I work with different companies, some of the companies, like the threats that they're facing are huge and terrifying and scary. And some of them I'm like, well, you sell custom t-shirts online, and I just don't think a nation state's really targeting you right now. So maybe we could calm down a bit. It depends. There's a question in the chat that I wanted to put on screen. So from Evan, on frameworks, when speaking to new engineers, there's a gap in awareness of frameworks and what frameworks exist for various ecosystems. Given there's a lot out there, do you have guidelines to help developers discover and access what frameworks capabilities they should have before they get attached to something? Do you have any advice on that, Ray?
Read the docs. I mean, unless they have like a here's all the security features. I mean, they usually do, right? They usually frameworks usually talk about their security features. There's usually like a best practices security page. Mm-hmm. That's probably a good place to start. But really, like if you're using a framework, you should kind of know like how the framework does its things. I would hope, and I mean, maybe I'm just like an old school developer, and that was like that's an old school way of thinking, but I still feel that way. Like, get to know your tools, get to understand your tools, get to understand the libraries that you're using, and the frameworks that you're using. And there's a lot of benefits for that. There's like maybe there's some performance benefits that you can gain out of knowing other alternate ways of using your libraries or frameworks, better ways of doing security, things like that.
I think he meant choosing which framework to use. So for instance, if you're using Java, there's a bunch of options, okay. but Struts and Spring Boot are the most common. And I would suggest Spring Boot because it has more security features and it's more modern. And because Struts made my life complete hell in 2016 and 2017 because of all the remote code execution vulnerabilities that were in it. And so I have feelings about Struts.
I would say I'm not as a like prod sec engineer. I'm not in the position to dictate to devs what libraries and frameworks they should be using, but I can recommend or write like guidelines on what capabilities their frameworks should have, right? And then I can audit those frameworks and be like, hey, they don't have these capabilities. What libraries are you going to use to enhance this, like these things, right? Yeah. And then also having like go do the research for them. Like I feel like if you're a company and and devs are just picking new frameworks, you're probably not the most organized. in a lot of the cases, like if they're able just to like run around and choose whatever they want. But like I think that's kind of how it goes now.
Yeah, talking about maturity.
So I think it's kind of on you to make sure that the frameworks are secure as a security person. Like we have SCA that scans the libraries, they scan the framework libraries. Like you should have those SBOMs and figure out what the devs are using and develop guidance for them rather than like, I guess, rather than telling them how they should work, be like, here, I guess, I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, I would rather you develop guidance of like how to do work in their tools safely rather than you telling them use these tools.
I would personally like to try to influence as best I can that they will choose a more secure option or ecosystem. I don't always get my way, but if I could attend the option analysis meetings or have, you know, my input be part of it, I would really like that.
Start befriending your senior staff and principal engineers, because those are the ones that have a lot of those influences. And like figure out in your org who's making the decisions, the technical decisions, like who has influences on the dev side, like you just said, right? Like that's
and have coffee or tea or beers or water or whatever it is you drink with that person and become their friend.
Yeah.
So a comment, many developers don't understand the code generated by, he's saying IA models, but I'm going to assume AI models. Yeah, I definitely think that there are a lot of people generating code right now and aren't able to understand all of it. And I feel like if you don't understand it, you should not check it in.
I don't agree that they aren't able to understand it, because I do believe that most devs out there are able to understand the code, but whether or not they like really do a code review to understand the code, maybe that's what you're getting at. But like I agree with that. Like I have been like, when I have AI generate some scripts, like I sometimes like I don't, depending on what the use case of the script, I just run it. Like I'll do a quick security review just to make sure like it's not doing anything crazy. But like I think AI causes some bad practices that we may not want to use all the time, or we may not want in our
that it's enabling bad practices.
It is enabling, yes. Yeah. It does allow you to be a little bit lazier than you normally could be before everyone had access to AI. So I get that, and it's something that I fight with myself about.
I want to say one more thing about input validation before we go on. And it's that I
have something too about another thing I wanted to point out about input validation too.
Okay, cool. Maybe we're going to say the same thing. So sometimes you have to accept dangerous characters. And it is my opinion that we should include that in whatever we're validating for. So we make a list of all the things that are yes. So we make an allow list of what is allowed in, and we include those special characters. And then after, you can escape them or you can sanitize them out. So everyone always says sanitize, which means like removing or replacing a special character with something that's not dangerous. But I think escaping is way better, which is just putting a backslash in front, and it takes the power away from that special character. For me, if you remove the character or replace it with something else, like that can lead to potential confusion later. And I don't like it personally. So that was my thought. What was your thought?
Okay. Yeah. So I actually, I have both of those are in there, and I have one more. So like we want to, like, there's allow lists and deny lists. We want to prefer allow lists, but that's not always doable. So that's another thing to think about. Deny lists are just a little bit easier to implement and manage, you know, like they're less time consuming. So, but like we want to try to default to the most secure if we are able to. The sanitizing, escaping, encoding, like I agree, like escaping, like change the context. Like escaping changes the context to it, like you said, eliminates that special power that those characters have. I do prefer escaping over like just removing the elements, because also if you're removing an element, maybe the person intended to have that element in there. Maybe they didn't intend it as malicious, right? Like a script tag. Like maybe they're like, hey, I want to put a comment in and I want it to say, like, I want to show someone this comment, like script, prompt, script, for example, right? And I want it to show up rendered as script, prompt, script. And if you remove that script tag, it's like, you're just going to see like prompt and like,
yeah,
like it's not useful. It may not be useful to the intended audience. And that's where you're like getting into like the output encoding and things like that on top of the escaping. And then the last thing I want to talk about with the input validation is the timing of validation. So when you validate matters. If you validate
too late,
you want to validate right before you're using that data, right? Like you don't want to validate when things are still happening, if the data is able to change. So like
as soon as you get it, you assign it to a variable and you validate it.
It depends if you're like, yes, like
validate as you like assign it. Like
I'm just talking about validation strategies, timing of validation in general. Like you want to validate like when it makes the most sense to validate.
No, right? Like, no, just validate right when you get the thing before you do anything else. No? Why would it not make sense to do it then? Because then you can't accidentally do something else with it.
I mean, yes, I guess we're saying the same thing. I'm saying we're validating before we're using the data.
Yep.
Right. 100%. That is I think we're saying the same thing, and I'm a bit.
That's okay.
We're just saying it differently.
That's okay. There is a comment in the chat I wanted to talk about briefly. So I don't know how to say this person's username, but I know it's a cliche, but I feel lost about my talent and skills. Everyone says I like computers and should do engineering, but I'm still unsure. I want to figure out what my real passion and interest is in. And I'm not sure if that is a comment because we were discussing, all the codes being written by the AI and, people aren't reviewing it now. And I'm kind of taking that comment in this context. And I think a lot of our jobs are really, really changing right now. And I have to say, so like I give training and I give talks, and my training is completely different every time I deliver it now. Like I have to rewrite it every time because something has changed so much from last month to this month. And it is exciting to be learning new stuff, but it's exhausting and it makes every contract like 3 times as much work. And what people want is changing. And I'll actually go to give training. And sometimes they're like, oh, by the way, we laid half of the team off last week. Or sometimes my contract, like just this one time, it didn't get signed. Like we were talking through it. And they're like, oh, we just laid everyone off. So we're not going to do it now. And actually that's happened twice now. And they're like, oh, we're just going to have AI write everything. And I'm like, well, I'll see you in a year when you have like a giant mess you need to clean up. But like in the meantime, a lot of things are changing and a lot of people are really nervous. And like everything we do is changing. And I've had people say like, why train my devs? Why do they need to write secure code when they don't write code now? And I'm like, because they need to review it and you just need to know it's not, because what's coming out of there is below average and average coding is insecure. What do you think, Ray?
If you train on garbage in, garbage out, right? I think it's getting better, but I think developers I think a lot's going to change in the next 2 years is what I'm going to say. I don't know how it's going to change, and I don't know. There's a lot I do not know about it, but
we were talking before the stream, and both of us were like, I wish I could skip ahead a year and see what it's going to be like so we could get ready.
Yes.
Or just so we could not have we could just know. I don't like ambiguity. I'm not good at that. I enjoy certainty.
I'm pretty sure most people fall into that boat. I think most people like certainty, especially around jobs and things like that.
Absolutely. So are we done input validation and maybe we're going to do output encoding?
Yeah, let's go output encoding.
So if we're going to do webby stuff and things are going to go into a web browser. A web browser has an interpreter, and we want it to only interpret our code, right, Ray? We don't want it to
That's the goal. We don't want it to interpret someone else's code on our sites. that is not the goal. Well,
generally,
sometimes that is the goal, but not if it's malicious code.
Yeah, only with consent, consensual interpretation.
Yes.
We don't want cross-site scripting, and cross-site scripting is basically when someone tricks your app, your web app, into thinking, the data that they entered is actually code, and that it's part of your app, and it should definitely totally interpret that too. It's not a good deal. And so what is one of the main defenses we could do against that, Ray?
Output encoding.
Yes. What the heck's output encoding?
It's basically encoding the data you're sending out into a form that is not going to cause. Let's say. Okay, so encoding is basically just when you transform between logical representations of text. So into into a well-defined
raw
kind of sequence, I would say. I don't know
that it can't be interpreted anymore.
Yes, yeah. So, but when we're talking about output encoding, we're not always talking about XSS. We're not always talking about HTML or JavaScript, because we have URL encoding, right? We have HTML, we have HTML attribute encoding, JSON encoding, JavaScript encoding. So for JSON values and CSS, right? We have to encode in all these different contexts. Mm-hmm. Have different ways that we need to encode, and mm-hmm. they all carry slightly different risks.
Mm-hmm. And we do it though, I guess in this instance, or the way that I was talking about it is so that if we are going to present something in the browser to the user, that we just present exactly the text that was entered, and we don't accidentally have a cross-site scripting vulnerability where, a malicious actor would be able to try to steal our session cookie. They could try to run external scripts. They could try to have a pop-up box, which is the least dangerous thing that there could be. We don't want them to embarrass us. There's the browser exploitation framework beef, where it hooks in, you have cross-site scripting, it hooks into your browser and it flips on your webcam. It starts recording you, basically terrifying. We don't want any of those things. And ideally, we're doing input validation. Ideally, we're doing output encoding. Ideally, we're also using content security policy header. But output encoding, it works.
Absolutely, that is a 100% control. You need to do it, and that there's if I'm talking to my devs, right, you just need to do it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Get it done. It's a requirement. That should just be in your security policies, right? You need to do output encoding.
Oh yeah, this is why it's the second thing that I teach, unless I'm teaching a non-webby thing, like C or something. For those of you that are just joining us, you can ask questions by posting a comment on the stream, and you're allowed to ask questions that ideally have something to do with IT, maybe with the book.
I can also field questions on beginning piano.
and we also, I can also cover questions on gardening. We're talking about chapter 2 of Alice and Bobbler and Secure Coding, a book that I wrote that came out last year. And we're live streaming chapter 2, which is the beginning chapter, the chapter about agnostic secure coding advice. And the next thing that was in the chapter was parameterized queries. And what the heck are those? Why would we do those? What's wrong? Why would we want to do that?
Because we generally don't like SQL injection, like as a rule. So,
injection is bad. I agree.
yeah.
Injection is very bad.
So, like using like parameterized queries are like a safe way to get untrusted input into like a database, right? Like whether that is a query or you're creating an entry or updating or doing whatever, right? Like we don't like that untrusted input. And basically anything coming from outside of your application is considered untrusted. Even if it's coming from another service you own, it is untrusted to that, right? To that one particular service. So that's just something to think about.
Injection is where essentially our app is confused by a malicious actor. A malicious actor has put something into a data field or data input of some sort. Our app accesses it. It thinks, oh, that's code, I should execute it. And it might be that it's compiling it, and it might be that it's interpreting it, but either way it gets executed. And then we run the bad code by accident. And so when we were doing cross-site scripting, like in the last section, we're talking about output encoding so that we can avoid cross-site scripting. Basically, it's a subtype of injection, and the most well-known type of injection is SQL injection, which is...
I'd probably say it's like one of the scariest still too. Like, because I mean, databases have a lot more functionality than a lot of people think.
Yeah. And they're behind your firewall. They're a server behind your firewall on your network in a very important part of your network if you do zoning. So it's in the data zone, unless you're doing zero trust, and then hats off to you if you're actually accomplishing that. And so then, if you have a poorly patched database server, they could potentially take over that server. Let's say you are ridiculous and you give the database user database owner privileges, and then it's poorly patched. They could potentially take over the database server, potentially pivot, which means go from computer to computer. That's a worst case scenario. But a best case scenario is they're seeing a bunch of data they shouldn't see. They may be updating or deleting data. This is confidentiality, integrity, availability, bad. Or a lack thereof.
Yeah. And one of the things that I just want to call out is so we're with parameterized queries, sometimes you'll hear people use parameterized queries and prepared statements interchangeably. Mm-hmm. And they're you can use them interchangeably. They're different, but a good way to think about it is a prepared statement is a reference to a what we consider a pre-interpreted query, I would say.
Okay.
That is ready to accept parameters, where the parameterized query is a operation that generates the prepared statements and then passes the parameters to it and then executes it, right? So we call them the same, and different frameworks and libraries may interchange it. So mm-hmm. We can essentially just say those two are the same, and then we have, I guess, ORMs that we need to.
Where are they called in MS SQL? Stored procedures. I just called it stored procedures forever, and eventually people pointed out that stored procedures are absolutely not universal.
Stored procedures are all prepared statements and parameterized queries usually live in the code base, where mm-hmm. stored procedures are stored on the database that get used, and it is basically a prepared statement as a stored procedure.
Yeah.
I think I would just say it's just I would call it a stored procedure if it lived on the database.
Fair enough.
But I haven't thought about stored procedures in a long time.
But
when I was a developer, one of the mm-hmm. big patterns was writing your business logic in the stored procedure, because you could change the business logic easier without changing the code.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a terrible idea. But now, but that was a big pattern back, I don't know, around 2005, 2010 maybe. I don't even remember when that was.
Oh, I did that. I did every bad thing.
And it's crazy when you have different databases calling each other within stored procedures, because then you get really.
Okay, no, I didn't do like that. No, oh wow. Okay. Oh my. Oh my.
Yeah.
So we do parameterized queries or stored procedures or all of those things specifically just so we can say these parameters, these are data. Never execute what's in here. Only treat it as data. And then injection is just faster. Oh, and someone else is pointing out
Keith
stored
has
procedures.
a good
Are faster
share that.
and compiled. Yeah. Go Keith.
And that's a good thing is if your devs aren't using it, just be like, do you not care about performance?
Yep. But what about ORMs?
I actually don't know how much more performant it is, but like I remember it's been a while since I did like SQL query optimization, but like I'm sure there's probably a performance impact there for sure.
So ORM, Object Relational Mapping Frameworks. So it's a framework for our database that makes things more secure. I've only ever used one actually, like at work, and it was the entity framework for .NET, and it was such a pleasure. It wrote
that's the one I've used too.
Yeah, it wrote my constructors for me. It wrote all of the basic calls for me. I found it so it saved me a ton of time of writing really boring stuff. I didn't know at the time that it added an additional layer of security, and it helped make sure I use stored procedures and just follow best practices. Like at the time, I was like, oh, this is saving me time, when I had no idea there were positive security implications.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Just a call out, like ORMs can be vulnerable to SQL injection if you use them inappropriately. You could still put raw queries in it. Like you can still format things wrong if it lets you, which can lead to SQL injection. So like just because you have an ORM doesn't necessarily just mean that you're secure. You still have to follow their best practices and use things the way that they were intended to be used.
Twice I have reviewed code where the stored procedure or the prepared statement, what it does, it has one parameter, and it takes that parameter and then directly executes it against the database. And one of the times the dev was long gone, but the other time the dev was still working there. And I'm like, dude. And he's like, well, I'm like, dude. And he's like, yes, ma'am. It's like, he's like, well, the policy, I was like, don't even. Like, this is like you coming home really drunk in the middle of the night when you're a teenager and your mom totally busting you. You just shut up and you say sorry. He just like hung his head. He's like, yes, ma'am. I'm like, you go fix that now. He's, yes, ma'am.
I'm just gonna say that I do not promote underage drinking.
But mostly because we both haven't been underage in a very long time.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a comment in the chat that totally changes the topic, but I think it's a really good question. What would be one single most valuable tech skill to learn in today's era that would never be replaced? I have an answer for this, Ray, but I want to give you first option. If you
tech skill, I wouldn't call it necessarily a tech skill, but I would say like critical thinking. Like if you are better at critical thinking than your coworkers, like you are going to do better in the age of AI, I think.
Okay, I like that. I would say 2 skills. So I know you said one, but one is a tech skill, and that would be becoming very, very good at prompting the AI. I think that if you don't know how to drive it, you're going to get terrible results. And I think that every single job going forward pretty much is going to require use of AI, every single tech job. And so if you don't know how to work with the AI at a basic level, you're going to have problems. So just how to get it. Because the first like year that I used it, I'm like, it's so stupid. And then I learned how to give it enough context and how to explain and and then all of a sudden
they've gotten better.
Yeah, it's gotten better, but I've gotten better.
Yeah.
And then the other one would be, so if you want to get promoted, you want to get a lot of work done quickly, you want to be treated better, communication skills. Maybe we could call it soft skills, but understanding how to communicate what you want or need clearly. And the hardest part for me, understanding what the heck everyone else is saying. I used to have like a lot of trouble getting things across in a super professional manner. I don't mean that I was rude, but I mean, I had problems with being too forward and too blunt and too direct. And it made people uncomfortable when I was younger. Ray's like, you still do that. No,
I feel like
I'm so much better.
Like that is exactly how people would describe me at work.
I try now to like give some more background, to lead someone up, to tee off the thing before I ask for the thing, instead of just walking up and being like, delete this database table.
You gotta learn how to be a team player.
Yeah.
Like if your feedback, and if you're a security person and your feedback is like, if you rub the devs the wrong way, you're not going to do well. Let's just put it that way. Like you have to get them on your side. Like they have to want to work with you.
So there's another a question and a follow-up question. So what Python and Java books for challenges and exercises do you recommend, and database books? And I don't have any, but I do suggest Talk Python to Me, which is a podcast with this guy named Michael Kennedy, and he really dives deep in all of his episodes, and he has many, many episodes. So for Python, Talk Python to Me is really good. I don't have, for Java, there's, what is it? I suggest it in my book. I could look that up for a second, but Ray, I don't know if you had thoughts.
So I have like a big, let's see if I can find it. I have like a Python book somewhere. I don't think it's in this room, but I don't know. It's like a big like Python reference book from O'Reilly, I think.
Oh, you know what? Another good one about Python is how to automate everything. So for Java, I suggested in the book reading the secure coding guidelines provided by Oracle, but they're 80 pages. It's a tough read. And some of it is like, dudes. And then also there's the CERT Oracle Secure Coding Standard for Java by Fred Long. So those are two suggestions. They're heavy reading though.
As for database books, like I would just say like, unless you're going to be like trying to be a DBA, I don't know how much actual database knowledge you need as a developer in 2026.
Yeah. Let's move on to authentication and identity, if that's okay.
Yep, let's do it.
So when I say authentication, to me, that means the computer verifying that you, the user, are the real you, or that the computer it's talking to is the computer it thinks that it is. It's identifying that person. It's the act of recognizing them. And then identity is your user on the network. Do you agree? Disagree? You're allowed to disagree.
I think that's a good solid definition. I'm not going to disagree with it for sure.
And then authorization, which is going to come next, but is basically deciding you are or are not allowed to access this or that. And that could be a user, or sorry, that could be like a page on a web page. It could be being allowed to use a feature. It could be being allowed to return this record or which parts of the record. And then the access control, is it controlling whether you can do it or not? It's the actual security control of allowing and disallowing. And someone in the chat has suggested secure coding on the Carnegie Institute website. Thank you for that, for looking for Java for junior.
Oh, for Java for a junior, like if they don't have any coding experience for Python, there used to be a like learn coding the hard way or learn Python the hard way. And that back in the day, I used to recommend that a lot to people just wanting to learn like how to script and stuff.
But obviously also you would get my book too.
There's a lot of good resources out there. There's a lot of good, like there's some Python resources. Like if you look for it, like I'm on LinkedIn, add me and message me and I'll throw some, and I'll talk to Tanya and have her throw some resources. I'll get something together for her, possibly. I'm not on social media a whole bunch, but I do have a LinkedIn account.
He does. So one of the things when I was writing about authorization and access control and identity and all of that, one of the things was that there's different models that you can follow. And honestly, Ray, I was switching between them based on context. And I had never really like named a lot of them or thought of it as, oh, I'm using a different, I was just like, oh, it's just access control, and not realizing that there's different models. Is it okay if I go over the models?
Yeah, let's go over the models.
Okay, so the first one's mandatory access control, or MAC. And so I use this in the government all the time. And so things would be, protected A, B, or C when I worked in the Canadian federal government, or they'd be, public, secret, top secret, and then above top secret, there's a tree. And there's all sorts of different ones. Like signals intelligence was one that I dealt with, which makes sense considering a lot of the work that I've done. And recently I found out that top secret in French is très secret, which means very secret. And I find it the most adorable, cute thing ever. And I want to get a t-shirt that just says très secret. Not only because so everything in French just sounds sexy, but like it also it's just so funny. It's like, it's not secret, it's very secret. It's like really, really, really secret, Ray.
I like it. I mean, despite my last name, I am unable to speak French, but I dig the very secret.
But basically it's like there's levels, and if you are that level, you can have everything that's that level and below. And it's often in military or government. And it's not that often in private industry that I've seen stuff like that, personally.
I've seen a lot of like that level of, yeah. And in private industry, you usually see like RBAC or like an attribute based, like.
Yeah. So let's talk about RBAC, role-based access control. That's the thing that I kind of just always associated when I build software. I just always assume RBAC, which is, if someone's a database administrator, that's the role they play at work. Those are the things they get to have access to. I'm a developer, so I get all the developer types of access. Someone's an executive, so ideally we give them nothing. Right? Like a sysadmin, they have the superpowers, right? And you, based on your role. So like if you're in an app, if you're the administrator of the app, you get, all the superpowers, let's say. But if you're a guest user, you really you don't get to do very much at all.
I think role-based access control is probably like one of the, I would say maybe one of the more standard ones to implement. I don't know if it's easier necessarily, but I think it's easier to think about, because it's like I have this role gives you access to these things. And you can give people, sometimes you can give people multiple roles that have access to multiple things. And I think a lot of the access control models are just like, it's like how you think about giving access and then implementing that pattern, right? Like versus like attribute based access control, where you like assign like users or in resources and all this stuff have attributes, and then it's just like, okay, you have this attribute, this resource has this attribute, you're good.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it seems just so super logical. But then when I was researching this book, so the next one that is in the book, and the next one that I discovered was DAC, so discretionary access control, and that's where whoever makes the thing gets to decide who's allowed to access it and how. And this can be good and bad. So let's say I'm at work and I make a document. And quite frankly, at first, when I'm working on something, I don't want my team to see, because usually it's stupid, right? Like I just put random thoughts on the page. They're sort of all over the place. And then slowly I form ideas and it gets better and better. And then I'm like, okay, another human being can see this. It doesn't look stupid anymore. And then it's like, oh, so I'll work locally maybe, and then I'll put it in a shared place and I'll ask for feedback or something, right? But like when we use like something like Google Docs, we give access or we don't give access, and we'll say, oh, this person can just view it or they can edit it, etc.
Yeah, I think the use case makes sense in certain scenarios, but like I at my past job, at a past job, I did some like Google Workspace admin work, and I would say that I absolutely hate that method as an admin. And like seeing who has access to everything, and locking down resources, it can be tricky sometimes.
I also found people would play little games. So when I worked in the government, and the stories in the book, I was talking to another team lead, and so the security team. So I was lead of the developers. Surprise! For a long time, I was the senior dev for like almost a decade before I switched to security. And here I am, like the leader of all the devs, and the security team's like, oh, you have to fill out these long forms from now on for every single project. And I was like, oh my gosh, kill me. And so I was complaining to the guy that was in charge of all of the COTS products, so the customizable or configurable off-the-shelf products, so like SharePoint, PeopleSoft, stuff like that. And I was like, literally, it's like my full-time job to fill out these effing forms now. Like I have work to do. And they seem to be offering like zero value. The questions they ask are so stupid. And he's like, oh, just don't fill them out. I'm like, I have to. And so what he would do is he would copy the form, change the name to whatever his project was, and tell them it's finished and send them a link. And he's like, and I would just not give them access on purpose. And then of all the times in the past year of my 28 projects, twice they said, hey, I don't have access. And then you know what I did? I just worked late, filled out the whole thing, and pretended I didn't see the email till the next day, and then sent it to them as soon as it was done and said, oh, sorry, I just screwed up my permissions. And he's like, so I didn't have to write like 26 of them. And I was just like, what? They're not reading them?
Have you ever dealt with with compliance? Like, I'm pretty sure most answers don't get read.
Yeah, so
I'm pretty sure most SOC 2 reports never get read.
I feel like I deserve an award for not setting the building on fire. I was so pissed off. So, then I say to the security team, like, you're not reading them, so I'm not going to write them. Like, tell me if you're going to read it and I'll write it. And then, of course, they're like, that's not okay. Because I just say my stupid thoughts out loud sometimes.
I don't think it is a security problem. I just think this is a human problem of like path of least resistance. Like you look over it and it's like, oh, I don't have access. I'm just going to move on to the next thing, Like
maybe they were reading mine and not reading his because they didn't have access to his and they did have access to mine. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think it's disrespectful to ask people to do work that you're not even going to ever use. But I have a lot of thoughts.
I would agree with that. I think it's a waste of time and not necessarily. Yeah, I have way too many thoughts on that subject as well that I do not want to go into.
Okay, so we have a question in the chat. Do Java developers think they can't do much in AI without Python? Is that a myth or a reality? I've never heard of this.
Yeah,
I don't think you need to know Python to use AI. So I think it's maybe a myth then. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the last access control model. So there's lots of them, but the last one that I put in the book was rule-based access control, which has the same acronym, essentially RBAC, but like online, some people put like RB, RBAC, and I was like, wow, that's not super confusing at all. But basically that one is rule-based. So let's say most of us work between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. So things are only accessible during that time, right? Or maybe your door pass only works until a certain hour at night because people shouldn't be in the building past midnight or whatever. Or maybe, if you exit the building past 6, you can't get back in, stuff like that, like rule-based access, or you can only access, these things when you're on like the VPN, but from outside the VPN you can't, or whatever, like rules like that, like logic-based rules.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have much more to add to that one, unfortunately. Like those are like, you don't see them a whole bunch. Like, I guess in that way of like, this web app is only open from 6 to 8 at night or something like that. But you do see that actually. I have seen apps that are only usable in certain hours of the day. And I guess that may allow them to like not need after hours support and things like that, or whatever their business use case of doing that is. But it's weird to see them now. I think that was more common like years and years ago when we were getting started, but I'm sure that still exists, right?
I mean, I don't know. I think that COVID changed everything. Yeah. I think that, so in Canada, you couldn't see a doctor before on the phone. So even if you're renewing a prescription that you've been taking for all of your entire life and you've had the exact same dose for like a decade, you'd still have to go into the doctor, sit in the waiting room, go in, physically see the doctor so that they could just be like, yup, and then leave, right? And then with COVID, now I can talk to my doctor over the phone. And
you should have just had them bundle in on a bunch of extra tests, so it was worth your time to do that.
It just tests me for random things that don't matter.
Yeah.
Let's spend money. But like, okay. Anyway, I'll leave that. The next one, session management, but I'm kind of more interested in talking about secret management. And I was wondering if you wanted to kind of take it away for a second and explain what I mean, or what we mean by secret management.
By secret management?
Yeah. Like what are secrets and why do we care? Why should they not be in our code, or should they be in our code, Ray?
Oh yeah, they shouldn't be in our code. So with secret management, ultimately, like, I mean, we hate hard-coded secrets 100%. But I would say we want to use, like if you're in AWS, we want to use KMS, right, to generate our secrets. We want to use like external or maybe internal tools. But yeah, hold on. I forgot what she wrote on secret management, so I am going to look it up really quick. I think that is my only available during certain hours. US SSA, my access. I'm unfamiliar with what that is. Sorry, I was reading a comment.
That's okay. Do you want me to define secret management?
Well, I guess like I forget how you were talking about secret management in the book, so I forgot.
You don't have to say it the way I say
it. Notes in that I missed. I don't have a note section for that one, but
you don't have to say it the way I say it. But basically, secrets are what computers use to authenticate to each other, to say, hey, I'm this API. What's up? Can we chat? And it's like, hey, I know that face.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Right? Secrets are for computers, where passwords, passwordless, etc. are for humans. And so secrets are how they recognize each other. And then secret management is, what the heck do we do with those, and how do we make sure we keep them safe?
Why secret management's important is that it should help with the entire life cycle of the secret. Right.
Yeah.
So in the one of the hardest things is rotating your secrets. And like secret management does this, like secret management systems should be doing that for you. Mm-hmm. So you do not have to worry about it.
Yes. Well, and ideally, so when I went to college in the 90s, they taught me, put all your secrets in your code so you don't lose them. And you should have, for instance, your connection string to your database, which had passwords in it. Put prod, staging, QA, dev, all the different environments in your comments so you don't lose any of them. And then basically
you'd have them all in your config file too, because you'd have like, and it just like, and you'd pump that out, that config file out to all the different, like you'd have a prod.config and a dev.config, and it'd have your database string in it with your database connection string with your username and password. Man, exactly. We were so bad at security back in the day, weren't we?
But that was the best practice at the time.
That was. So well, there was no real other solutions that we had access to.
Ray, there's still so many companies where, like, I'll come in to consult, and I'd say maybe a third of them I'll talk about, and then you store it in your secret management tool, and then the devs all look over at the security team with these death stares, and they're like, we don't have one. And they've been asking for it often for years. And the security team's like, oh, it's still in evaluation. I'm like, are you kidding? And so then the security team's like doing pen tests and reporting to them, oh, we found your secrets. And the devs are like, yeah, we know. Right? Like, and there's like this friction that you could cut it with a knife.
If you don't give them the easy path, they're gonna carve out that easy path, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't give them the tools to be safe, they're not going to be safe, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but like, what are you evaluating? Right? Like, oh, we're doing like a proof of value or proof of concept or whatever the hell you call that. And I'm just like, yeah, but that shouldn't take a year or two, right? Like,
also, like all the major cloud things have an offering, right? Yeah. Like cloud providers have offerings for this. Like, I mean, I guess evaluating that makes as much sense as like evaluating like Lambda. It's just a service. I mean, like I guess you probably want to do a little bit more evaluation on secret management than like Lambda, but like a year is a bit overkill. But like, I don't know how in-depth their evaluation was. Maybe they were doing like an internal code review of AWS, like AWS's code or something. Maybe they're doing pen tests on it. I don't know. So
no. So before we got on, you and I talked about how I advise that people should, ideally, if they can, buy a solution that does complex security things like identity, or secret management, etc., rather than writing your own. And then I am a hypocrite, and I put how to store user passwords.
Yeah,
how do you
I haven't given advice for like maybe 5 or 10, somewhere between 5 to 10 years on how to store a password, because like there's like Auth0 and like Cognito. Like all the different cloud service providers have their own stuff. Frameworks are baked in with it. If you decide to use that part of your framework, there's I haven't seen a lot of recent applications that my teams have been building where they're like wanting to accept people's usernames and passwords. I think that's a risk that if devs can just not deal with that, they should absolutely not want to deal with that.
Yes. So For the record, I would rather we use passwordless systems whenever we can because users suck at managing passwords. They don't enjoy it. It makes it less usable. And also, generally, it's more secure if we use a passwordless system. And by that, I don't mean we just let anyone use anything. I mean that we authenticate them and authorize them in a different way. But a ton of legacy things exist all over the planet.
Yep.
And lots of people are still designing new systems that use a username and password to authenticate. And so as a result, I wanted the advice to be in the book so that people, if they're going to do it, they do it better.
So these systems are like Cognito, like accepts usernames and passwords, right? And MFA and all that stuff. It's just that you don't like, if you're not an identity company, you don't want your devs probably writing the identity framework that your company's using. Like
Ray, when I teach, at least 50% of companies are like, we need that module because we're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, like I've helped when you're like, don't roll your own. Like I've helped roll out service, like a custom implementation of service to service auth at a previous job. So like there's a lot of things that, I mean, it took a very long time. We had some very custom use cases that like OAuth did not like. We didn't like the OAuth flow for it, so like it made our development weird. So we kind of designed our own, and it was based off OAuth, but like the resources that was put into it, it was like a whole team for like 6 months working on this damn thing. I was doing constant reviews of it. Like all the other security people were basically had eyes on it. And then we hired external third party to do a full code review and audit and pen test. And like each year we had to pen test that one particular piece. And it was a lot of resources for, like, I don't know exactly how much we really gained from it. Like, as opposed to just using like a service mesh. Right.
Yeah. Because I teach all the time and I give talks all the time and I give advice a lot. Whenever developers are like, I could just make my own authentication, authorization, session management, identity, or whatever, this is how I word it. I'm like, so Microsoft makes Active Directory. They're like the oldest software company, one of the oldest software companies in the world. They have 500,000 employees and another 500,000 in contractors approximately. And they measure their profit per quarter in trillions. And they still have bugs. But you think you can do better off the side of your desk, eh? That's some sweet arrogance. Like the amount of money it's going to take to develop it is one, but to maintain it, to make sure you have proper testing of it, yeah. It's ridiculous. Why on earth how could it possibly ever be cheaper to do it that way unless you do a terrible job? Versus also that's time where you could be building super cool new features for the actual product that your company sells that could delight your customers and differentiate you from your competitors and all of the other things and get you promoted.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what like I want, because like if I have equity in that company, I also want that company I want it to be secure, yeah. But I want it to have also really cool features that like hopefully make me more money in the future. But like, I mean, that said, like it's just not a good use of resources to do some of this stuff. And if you're not making money off of that thing, or you don't have a very specific use case that like you can't really get around it, like, yeah, like that, the maintenance costs, like, I don't know about you all out there, but the time spent on maintenance versus adding new features is like it is disproportionately feature based versus maintenance based. And that's something that you have to consider when you're like authorizing your devs to do things like this, is like, will they have time to actually maintain and fix it? And Like,
Oh, yeah. It's a real cost.
Yeah.
So for those of you just joining us, because I'm seeing the numbers go up and down and up and down and up and down, so people are definitely joining. You can ask questions by putting a comment on the event page where you're watching it, whether that be YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitch. And Ray and I are talking about Chapter 2 of Alice and Bob Learn Secure Coding, which are agnostic secure coding advice. Ray, did you want to talk about protecting sensitive data or security headers? Which one would you prefer to talk about? Or something else?
We could go, like, I guess in protecting sensitive data, like, what do we want to talk about in that one? Because, like, I do a lot with, like, PHI. So, like, I know a lot about it, but, like, I guess where do we want to take that discussion is what I'm going to say. Because there's a lot of ways you can think about it.
Well, one of the things that I usually start with is that if you don't collect something or touch something, you don't have to protect it.
Yes, that is the best advice. Like, if you don't need it, don't save it.
Yeah.
Don't log it. Don't just, like, if you could just drop it right away, that is the best, because if you don't have to protect the data, you're not liable for it. Yes. And, like, really, when we're talking about data protection, we're talking about, like, liability for your company. And, like, we have in the US, we have HIPAA, but we also have a lot of other. I mean, we have the California
privacy law.
Yeah, the California one. If you do any business in Europe, you have the GDPR, and, like, I feel like businesses, like, it's kind of like businesses want all the data because
marketing teams want all the data.
They want all the data, but, like, I feel like security teams want less data because, like,
yeah.
So
I think one of the other things too is that so not only, like, do we want to do data minimization, so, you know, if the marketing team's like, let's collect 37,000 pieces of information about every user and track them across the internet, you might want to push back on that if you're the security team. But on top of that, I would say design your systems. So if you only need to keep the data for a certain amount of time, so in the Canadian government, you have to keep everything 7 years. And so I would design auto deletion to start at 7 years, because we would get something called an ATIP request, which is an access to information and privacy request. And any person in Canada can request it. Even if it's 25 years old, if we have it, we got to produce it. Right. And so if we don't have it, we don't have to produce it. And just from, like, a time saving standpoint, not having that data is good. And I remember lots of devs being like, well, that's 7 years from now, I'm not even going to work here. Yeah. So you want to do a crappy job for the next dev? Is that, like, your plan here, is to do a bad job on purpose? Like, so designing to only, like, take the data and keep that you need and auto delete as soon as you can. Another thing that I think is pretty important is classifying and labeling the data.
I was actually going to mention that too.
So what do we mean? Like, what is that?
I mean, so every piece of data, like, I mean, I don't like to be too granular with it, like, but, like, I like to label, like databases or even tables, like, if it has, like, PHI or PII, like, what type of data everything has in it. So, like, in AWS, you can, like, use labels and tags and things like that. So, like, for things like, if it has PHI in it, you should have a PHI tag on that. That way you also, like, know where your data is and, like, what's where. Because one of the big, like, the hardest part of, like, protecting data is, like, knowing where the data lives. And you might have a database, and, like, security people may not know what's in that database unless there's documentation of telling you that, right? But yeah, like it's crazy. There's a lot of, I mean, AWS has Macy because people have so much problem with this exercise. Like doing this is
What
like
does Macy do?
it. I believe so. I haven't used Macy in a very long time, but I've actually been in the GCP world for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe it analyzes the data in buckets and like different places in AWS, and it determines what type of data it is, like if it's PHI or something like that. I'm that if you're looking for the exact thing, but I know it has to do with data classification and things like that. So it helps you. We used it at a previous job to help us figure out what was in where.
Cool. So for clarity, classifying data means deciding if it's sensitive or not, and then what sensitivity level it is. It's just making that decision. And then labeling is literally putting a label on it, like Ray was explaining. And that could be putting it on the database, putting it at the field level. It could mean putting it in the design doc. There's all sorts of different ways you could decide. You could name your variables in a way. Like whatever way you do it, it's just important that everyone else is doing it that way too, so you all know where to look for the labels. If you don't know if something's sensitive or not, ask your security team. I have had lots of security teams say, oh yeah, they all know. And then I've had lots of devs be like, what are they talking about? They've never taught us that. Like over and over and over and over again.
Well, if you work in the US and you deal with PHI, all the developers should know because they have to take the yearly test every year or the yearly training every year. But how
personal health information
that training is questionable sometimes.
Personal health information for those of you wondering.
No,
no, it's okay. It's okay. But not everyone knows. Not everyone knows. Okay, so we have a great question in the chat. So best approaches for secure coding while using mainly using AI to generate code or entire apps. Do you want to take a crack at this, or do you want me to take?
Yeah. So at my job, I'm working on some, like, me and some coworkers are working on some like skills and plugins for Claude to help developers like do a preemptive secure code review. But like there's also prompts that you can use that will maybe enhance the security of the app building out. I believe you have built some of those prompts out, Tanya.
Yeah. So I think there's a whole bunch of things we can do, and I have several talks and trainings and all of this on this. So there's like more in-depth things you can do, but just to start, you could go to securemyvibe.ca. So what I did is I took my most recent book, the Alison Bobler and Secure Coding book that we are literally talking about right now. I distilled it down into 84 items of advice that I made a secure coding guideline out of, which you can get at, wait for it, securecodingguideline.com. I'm going to put that on there. And then I went and I took that and I made a prompt library out of it with different levels of prompts. And that's at securemyvibe.ca. And both of those are free, but you have to join my newsletter. But that seems extremely reasonable. And you can just unsubscribe if you need to. But also, if you like those things, you're going to love my newsletter. Plus, there's memes. It's true. It's true. If you like my work, you're going to like my newsletter because all it is me giving you my work for free. So it's a pretty good deal. And things like recordings of this, my podcast, etc. So go check that out. The idea is it tells it, your AI assistant, every single time you generate code to follow this rule set. And then after that, if you're going to design or build certain things, there's a second tier of several prompts that help you build specific types of features, and you fill in the blank, and it helps basically drive the AI better for you. And then the third level of prompts, or the third tier, is when you want to build specific security controls. So if you have to build a security control from scratch, it helps the AI do just much, much, much better. In my brief testing, it really, really improve the quality of the code. So please feel free to go and grab a copy of that. There's more that you can do on top of that, like having a secure system development lifecycle, creating a RAG server with examples of the way that your organization does certain security things. So let's say, you have a secret management tool and this is how you access it. And, you've tested that code, you could put that in your RAG server and say like, always do it this way, right? There's more that you could do on that, but just starting with the prompts, I think would be a thing that could really help.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Start with the prompts and then like level up slowly as you like figure out which prompts you're wanting to do and which patterns you're wanting to enforce, I guess, right?
So Ray, we only have 30 minutes left. So I selfishly want to cover error handling and then the questions at the end of the chapter.
Let's do it.
So the new OWASP top 10 risks to web apps, which I helped write because I'm one of the project leaders, and I'll put a link to that in the chat in a second. 2 of the top 10 are error handling, basically. So one of them is mishandling of exceptional conditions, which means we're basically just not handling errors at all, or we're handling them really poorly. And then the other one is security logging and monitoring failures, which is sort of the other half of error handling, right? Because you should do monitoring and alerting after there's a failure. And so it's 2 of the OWASP top 10. Like, we really think it's a problem. Why? I don't know. Do you want to comment on error handling while I look up the OWASP top 10 for everyone?
Yeah. Like, we really don't want to give, like, I mean, we definitely don't want to jump stack traces out to the end user. Like the end user, most people aren't technical. Like, they're going to get confused. It's just going to look bad for the company, right? Like, it just is not a good look. But also, like, if that person is technical and potentially malicious, you could be possibly like giving information, like more information about how your application works internally. And we, for the most part, like, we want to keep that to ourselves. We don't want to share that with people. We just want them to have the end user experience that we prefer them to have, right? I'd say there's like a lot of like error handling is one of those things that seem really simple, but like is like super nuanced, and there's sometimes some gotchas, and like you have to kind of understand how your programming language sometimes handles errors and how it bubbles errors up and where to catch errors, and like, because catching errors in the wrong place, if you're bubbling it up all the way, like that might not be the best place to do it. Or yeah.
But we should not try and then we catch and then we do nothing.
I've seen that so many times. Like,
you need to do something about it.
At least throw a log message, right? Like, at the very least, you should be throwing something in a log, because like ultimately, like, we don't want errors in our application, like at all. Like, we want, like, errors are bad. Like, try catches are expensive, right? Yeah. Those are expensive operations to do, as opposed to just doing that operation. So yeah, we don't want that stuff in our. I mean, we want try catches in our code when it makes sense, but we
need to do something about it. We need to handle the situation, because if we don't, if our app doesn't know what to do next, it will fall into an unknown state. And then guess what? We don't know what's going to happen. And that is literally where a lot of vulnerabilities lie, or crashes. Either way, it just sucks. Oh, someone's saying you, on the flip side, so you don't want to give away system data, but you want to be more detailed than, sorry, something went wrong. Yeah, that's very frustrating for the user.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
I mean, that's where error handling comes in, and you have your different error codes, and you can write different error codes for everything, and have different end user messages. So yeah, like you do want to be more detailed. But unfortunately, being more detailed sometimes means you have to do a little bit more work, and you have to understand the errors that you're going to be that will be coming up, and you need to think about how to handle those like gracefully.
I completely agree. So
like everything's work. Security is always going to be more work than not doing security, and like, but
yeah.
For all you security people out there, we have like, and if your company's using AI, start pushing back on the developers a little. If they're not writing the code, they can't be complaining about it. You know, like, like remember that.
Okay, I want to answer some of the questions that are at the end of the chapter. So, and you're allowed to disagree with me, Ray. So the answers are what I feel the answers are, right? And like, I'm opinionated. That's why I write books and write a blog and talk, because I have opinions and I want people to know them. So the first question is, and for those of you that have the book, it's page 52. Number 1, input to an API that comes directly from your web app, does your web app that's on the internet, does not need to be validated. True or false?
Am I answering?
Yeah, you can answer. You know what? Let's, audience, you can answer too. Everyone answer. Everyone answer.
I'll say true. I mean, I have a funny answer, but that's just for funniness, not necessarily for information. So I'm going to skip that. But yes, like you should be validating the input where it makes sense to validate that input. If you're, yeah,
I would say that generally, if there's input coming from the front end, if someone could proxy that and change it, you know, I would want to validate that input I'm receiving. If I have, you know, an API gateway and it's making sure that the data only comes from the front end and it can't be proxied somehow, and you have 400 other things, but I would say that it does need to be validated. So in the chat, someone says false, because the way I ask it, the answer is false. Because I say it in a negative, which isn't great. So yes, yay, nice work, awesome.
I mixed that up.
No, it's okay. I know what you mean though. So number 2, how many times does someone need to sign in for SSO?
It depends on which SSO provider you're using.
How many times should you have to log in for SSO?
Once a day?
Which stands for single sign-on. It should be once. But oh my gosh.
Well, I'm going to say that once plus step up off for any sensitive actions.
Okay.
And,
yeah, that sounds
like, because if you're changing like a GitHub org setting or something like that, right? You probably want that person to
re-authenticate,
and like Okta, it's just like I have to look at my phone and press a button. Like, how hard is that? Like, it takes me 3 seconds. Like my context is not really changing, right? So, but yeah, you should only have to once. But I've had some interesting implementations of SSO where it just seems like every 30 minutes you got logged out or something, right?
Yes, I worked somewhere that will remain unnamed where I had to log in up to 6 times per day, and it made me super crazy. Okay,
security people, like, don't make your end users hate you. That's
it was just
my 100% advice is like, have reasonable controls that make sense.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And if they're malfunctioning, do work, redeploy, fix it. Don't just be like, oh well. Yes. Yeah, someone's like MFA, ha 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 ha. Yep. Okay, so number 3, in what order do you do authorization and authentication, And why is the order important? And I want the audience to answer. So authorization and authentication, which order do they go in? So auth N first or auth Z first, and why? And we'll give them just like a couple seconds before inevitably they know we're going to give them the answer, Ray, because that is how this works. And because we don't have like 500 people on where it would go faster then. But Ray, does the order matter?
Yeah, we have to know who they are before we can know what they can do.
And that means
that's basically it.
So that means we need to do authentication before authorization.
Correct.
Yeah, because otherwise, how can you even figure out what access to give them if you don't even know if they're actually the person they say they are?
Yeah. And if they're not authenticated, or if they're not authenticated, then we should just treat them as like a
stranger.
Yes, right? Like as a user, like an untrusted user. I mean, all your users should be treated as untrusted users, but as a but you know what I'm saying.
So number 4, so remember we're talking about secret management. So I want everyone to put into the chat. So it says name 3 types of secrets that you would store in a secret management tool, but I want everyone to put anything that they can think of that is a secret in the chat. Anything that you think of as a secret. And then while people are doing that, as a reminder, secrets are what computers use to authenticate to each other so that they know who each other are. All right. Someone says
technically passwords are considered memorized secrets for NIST. I think that's what they call them, memorized secrets, something like that.
I've never heard of that. Okay, so some examples of secrets are hashes, certificates, API keys, yeah, tokens, yeah. Any sort of key, passwords, AKV. Ooh, what's AKV? I don't know that one. Interesting. Kubernetes secrets, connection strings. Yep. Good job. Good job, everyone. All of you are doing great. All of those things are secrets. Anything a computer uses to talk to another computer and say, hey, I'm this guy, let me in. All of those
my
things.
own personal secret manager, I also put like the name of my first pet, and no, I'm just joking. I was making a joke about the bad security questions back in the day.
Azure Key Vault is a secret management tool. Good job. Yes.
I like when people use the tools in their cloud providers for sure. The security tools are nice. Passwords, API keys, SSH keys. Yep.
SSH keys. I missed that one. Good job. Yes. So question 5 is same origin policy, which is a thing we didn't talk about. It's a security browser feature. It's in the security header section. Is enabled in web browsers by default in modern web browsers. True or false? I'm just going to give you the answer. The answer is true because it's a great feature and it makes it so that people can't read your stuff unless they're from the same origin or you grant them permission to do so. And this is...
I believe the default setting is lax, though.
Oh, really? All right.
Which is still good, right? Like it's still better than nothing. So
we can set it to strict.
Someone would have to check that. I actually don't know if that's still true, but I remember. I think that is correct.
Cool. Because the book was published in February 2025. It's been over a year. And then also by the time you publish it, like you finished writing it months and months earlier, it may have changed. But the next one, 6, cross-origin opener policy is enabled in the web browser by default in modern web browsers. True or false? Oh, I forget this one. I think it's true. I'm like 80% sure it's true.
I actually, some of these headers, like this, your book was the first time I actually looked at some of those headers. But none of some of these headers, like
false. It's false. It's not on by default. You have to turn it on. So it's like, where you label things that other origins are allowed to open and read from. So the new browser security headers, all of the CO ones, like cross origin blah, except for cores, which is really, really old. All of those came about because of Spectre and Meltdown in 2017, where basically a bunch of PhDs got together, worked for a year to ruin my life, to make me work lots of overtime, and basically figured out that they could read memory in other browser windows and attack them. And so as a result, we had to figure out ways to make that not happen. And it was a very complex and painstaking type of exploit. It's not like just anyone could do it all the time really easily, but still we had to fix that. So that's what all of those are about.
You know what? Actually, now that you've mentioned the Spectre thing, I do remember all these popping up. I just haven't thought about these in a while. I think that's what happened.
They came out in 2021, and less than 1.5% of the internet's websites have them turned on. So
I don't think I've seen it in the wild, truthfully.
Yeah, they're pretty rare. The Cybervine, I'm going to get to your question as soon as we are done these two last questions. So number 7, give some reasons why you would not print system error messages directly to the screen. What is a reason, and the audience can answer this, or Ray, you could, why would we not just print the system error message? Like if our database errors, why would we not put that to the screen for the user?
It is completely unhelpful for the user.
And it might make us look stupid. And most importantly, from a security perspective, that's a lot of sensitive info that might help them attack us better. We don't want that. Could you imagine you're like just a regular user and you get like this database error? You're like, what?
Yeah, as a like non-technical user, and you see that, like, what are you supposed to do with that information other than like try to reload the page, right? Or just close it out and be like, I'm going to go deal with another company.
Yes. Yeah, it makes us look unprofessional. Okay, so number 8, the last question at the end of chapter 2. Give one or more reasons why we need to catch our errors and handle them in our applications.
Because it's fun.
Because otherwise our app might crash. Because otherwise there might be a vulnerability. Because otherwise we don't know what it's going to do next. Because otherwise we look dumb. It's best practice for a reason. There are a lot of reasons. Anything you
just handle your errors.
Yeah, handle your errors. So the Cybervine asks, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on dealing with the ever-changing cyberspace with continuous AI threats like Claude Mythos. So Ray, you could totally add more on after I answer, but Claude Mythos it's another model from Anthropic that specifically finds vulnerabilities. In order to use it, you have to set up a test harness, which is quite involved from what I understand. So it's not like someone can just point it at a website and it's just going to find a million vulnerabilities. From what I understand, though, it's able to find multiple vulnerabilities very quickly, chain them together, and turn them into active exploits very quickly and extremely effectively. And so what are we going to do about it? I think we need to start writing way better code, right? I think that we need to actually take security seriously for real. I think that if we're going to be generating code with AI, I think we need to generate more secure code to begin with. I don't think that what we can do anymore is we write code or it generates code, which is not good to start. And then we run like something like static analysis, and it tells us there's 12 trillion things wrong. And then we're supposed to fix a million bugs, but we're given no time to do so. Then we're going to run, automated AI pen testing or something more intense like Mythos and find a trillion more things wrong. And then all developers are ever going to do is fix bugs in AI generated code. That seems like a miserable existence. I think that we need to reimagine the way that we are doing AppSec. I think our current tool set is not mature. I think that it was barely working at all for the way we used to do it, and it's completely not suitable for what we're doing now. So we need a new tool set. Pardon?
Like super hot take there. I like it.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's definitely a brave new world out there, and like AI is changing a lot of things. I don't think I think in the next 2 years we're gonna figure this. We're gonna find out. I don't know if we're gonna figure it out, but we're gonna find out for sure.
Would you say that we're effing around right now and we're gonna find out?
I'm just saying we're going to find out. I don't know if we're effing around. I don't know what people are doing with it, but
we are. Yeah. We have random people all over every organization, like people in marketing, CEOs, random people generating code and pushing to production. We are definitely.
I can say in the org I work for, this is a concern that we are actively trying to get ahead of. Mm-hmm. I would recommend like all you out there, your org you should probably suggest that they actively get ahead of this stuff too and start at least thinking about this. Mm-hmm. But like this is going to be a threat, and it is going to change how we do security. It's going to change how we think about open source. It's going to change a lot of things, and like we're going to have to adapt because you don't really have any other choice. Our job as security people is to make sure these things are secure. Mm-hmm.
Whatever the business is doing, we have to secure. We have to secure it. We can't just be like, don't do that, because guess what they're going to do? They're going to do it and not tell us.
Exactly.
Yep. Ray Leblanc, thank you for joining me on yet another stream. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome, Tanya.
Thank you for your hot takes and your information and your ideas, and for sharing your time with me. Thank you to everyone who came to this stream. I look forward to seeing you next month for Chapter 3. I'm going to be with Scott Helm. And I have months and months of people that I'm planning. I'm really excited to do the rest of these streams with you.
He's the header guy, right?
Yep, he's securityheaders.com guy. Oh, yeah. I know. I meant to get him for this chapter, but we just couldn't make it and have you for Chapter 3. But scheduling, it's a whole thing.
He would have been great for you. Should we didn't cover security headers. Have him cover it in the next one.
Yeah, just do it. Yo, guess
he's the guy that you want covering security headers, anyways.
Oh yeah. Him and I did a talk at RSA about security headers, and I thought it was great, but I'm a nerd. Anyway, with that, I want to thank everyone so much for coming. And I will see you next month. And until then, I hope that this has been helpful and that you handle your errors. Bye, everyone.